Before he became Thor, Chris Hemsworth was just a boy with big dreams and an ordinary life in Melbourne. Chris Hemsworth was born on August 11, 1983, in the suburb of Melbourne, Australia. His childhood seemed typical at first glance: school, friends, and family life. But there was a fire in him that was anything but ordinary. From a young age, Chris was energetic, mischievous, and curious about everything around him. He loved sports, climbing trees, and exploring nature. But more importantly, he had a dream that went beyond the suburbs of Melbourne. A dream to entertain, to inspire, and to someday be larger than life. Chris came from a close-knit family. His father, Craig, was a social services counselor, and his mother, Leonie, a child care worker. The family wasn't wealthy, but it was full of love, encouragement, and healthy competition. Chris had two brothers, Luke and Liam, both of whom would eventually join the acting world. But for Chris, this meant that even from a young age, there was a constant push to stand out. He was the middle child, and sometimes he struggled to be noticed. At school, Chris wasn't the star athlete or the most popular kid. He was tall, lanky, and occasionally awkward, a combination that made him feel out of place. But unlike others who might have given up, Chris turned these insecurities into fuel. He loved the world of storytelling and was fascinated by superheroes, mythology, and epic adventures. Little did anyone know, this fascination would eventually become his reality. Chris's teenage years weren't just about school and dreams. They were about building resilience. He took up surfing, boxing, and swimming, not just as hobbies, but as ways to challenge himself. These early experiences taught him discipline, endurance, and patience, skills that would become crucial later. But the real turning point came when he watched his first Hollywood movie in a theater. The lights, the action, the power of storytelling, it hit him like lightning. He knew he wanted to do more than just watch heroes on screen. He wanted to be one. At this point, Chris Hemsworth was still an ordinary Australian boy. No one could have predicted that this kid, with a love for adventure and a hunger for recognition, would one day stand on a Hollywood set, wielding Mjolnir as Thor, and inspire millions around the globe. The road ahead would be filled with grueling challenges, physical transformations, and sacrifices that would test every part of his being. And it all started with a single, ordinary decision: to follow his dreams relentlessly, no matter the odds.
Every hero has a beginning. For Chris, it started on a small screen in Australia, where dreams collided with reality. After finishing school, Chris Hemsworth knew he had a choice: follow a conventional path or chase the burning ambition inside him. The choice wasn't easy. Acting wasn't a guaranteed career. It was risky, competitive, and uncertain. But Chris had something that most didn't: a relentless determination. He knew he had to start small, prove himself, and seize every opportunity, no matter how minor it seemed. His first breakthrough came with Home and Away, one of Australia's most iconic soap operas. In 2004, Chris auditioned for the role of Kim Hyde. It was a grueling process, with hundreds of hopefuls vying for the part. Chris, tall and striking but relatively inexperienced, faced doubts, not just from casting directors, but from himself. Could he really pull it off? Could this Aussie kid from Melbourne survive the harsh world of acting? The moment Chris got the call, he was ecstatic, but the real challenge was only beginning. Home and Away wasn't just about memorizing lines. It was about performing daily, understanding camera angles, and working with a professional team that expected perfection. Every scene, every take demanded intensity. Chris threw himself into the role with unmatched commitment. He wasn't just acting, he was learning how to adapt, endure, and thrive under pressure. During this time, Chris faced moments of frustration. Early mornings, long shoots, and exhausting schedules tested his patience. He often found himself questioning, "Am I really cut out for this?" But each challenge taught him resilience. Each rejection he faced in auditions afterward strengthened his resolve. Even while working on the show, Chris didn't neglect his physical fitness. He knew Hollywood demanded more than talent. It demanded a presence. He surfed, ran, and lifted weights, sculpting his body in preparation for future roles that required a heroic physique. Little did anyone know, these early routines were laying the foundation for his Thor transformation. But the real magic happened off-screen. Chris observed seasoned actors, learned the subtleties of expression, and understood that acting was as much about emotion as it was about technique. These lessons would later become invaluable when portraying gods, warriors, and superheroes who needed to be both powerful and relatable. While Chris Hemsworth was making waves in Australia, Hollywood was far away, almost a dream. Few imagined that this young actor, still learning the ropes in a soap opera, would one day stand shoulder to shoulder with legends, lift a mythical hammer, and redefine what it means to be a modern superhero. But the next steps he would take, auditions, sacrifices, and transformations, would propel him closer to destiny than he ever imagined.
Every hero leaves their homeland to chase destiny. For Chris, the journey meant leaving Australia behind and stepping into a world where only the strongest survive. After achieving moderate fame in Australia with Home and Away, Chris Hemsworth felt the undeniable pull of Hollywood. He knew that to become more than just a local star, he needed to take a huge leap, a leap that would test his courage, patience, and resilience. In 2007, with his eyes set on the global stage, Chris made the bold decision to move to Los Angeles, leaving behind his family, friends, and the familiar comforts of Melbourne. Landing in Hollywood was nothing like the glamorous image portrayed in magazines. The city, glittering as it was, hid fierce competition, countless rejections, and endless uncertainty. Chris, a tall, handsome young man, found himself facing thousands of aspiring actors, all with dreams as big as his. For weeks, he went from audition to audition, often leaving with disappointment and a bruised ego. But Chris was not one to give up. He trained relentlessly, perfecting his acting skills, studying every role with meticulous detail, and constantly pushing his physical limits. He worked on his voice, his expressions, and his posture, understanding that Hollywood demanded more than talent, it demanded a presence that could captivate the world. Early roles were small but significant. Chris appeared in minor parts in TV shows like Star Trek, 2009, and Undercovers. Each role, no matter how tiny, became a stepping stone, building credibility and proving that he could adapt to Hollywood's high-pressure environment. He absorbed lessons from experienced co-actors, directors, and even the smallest on-set details, knowing that every experience mattered. One of the biggest challenges Chris faced was typecasting. His imposing physique and tall frame often made directors think of him only for roles requiring brute strength. Chris, however, wanted more. He wanted roles that demanded emotional depth, versatility, and charisma. This inner drive would eventually shape him into a superhero who was not just muscle, but a character with heart and complexity. Amid the struggles, Chris's personality, his humility, humor, and determination began to attract attention. Agents and casting directors noticed his potential, and whispers about this young Australian with the perfect combination of looks, talent, and drive started circulating in Hollywood circles. Little did anyone know that Chris Hemsworth's journey from minor TV roles to a god of thunder would soon begin. But first, he had to face one of the toughest challenges in his career, the audition that would change everything. Yet it almost didn't happen. Sometimes destiny waits for you behind a door you never thought would open. By 2009, Chris Hemsworth had been in Hollywood for about 2 years. He had built a small portfolio of roles, but nothing that would truly catapult him into superstardom. Then came the role of a lifetime, Thor, the Norse god of thunder in Marvel Studios' ambitious cinematic universe. But the path to that golden opportunity was far from simple. Chris first heard about the Thor audition through his agent. At that time, Marvel was taking a huge risk. They needed an actor who was physically imposing, charismatic, and capable of conveying both strength and vulnerability. Many seasoned actors were already in the mix, making the competition brutally intense. Chris, who had been working hard to refine his craft, knew he had to deliver something unforgettable. The first challenge was physical transformation. While Chris was already fit, Marvel wanted Thor to have a godlike physique. He went through rigorous training, combining weightlifting, functional exercises, and a strict diet designed to maximize muscle growth without sacrificing agility. For hours each day, Chris pushed his body to extremes, often training until his muscles screamed in protest. But it wasn't just about muscles. The directors needed Thor to carry emotional depth and charisma. Chris spent weeks studying Norse mythology, Thor's comic book origins, and even analyzing other actors' portrayals of heroic figures. He practiced speaking lines with authority, practicing stances, and perfecting the silent, intense gaze that would define the god of thunder. The day of the audition arrived. Chris stepped into the casting room, surrounded by cameras and the intimidating presence of Marvel executives. He felt the weight of his dream pressing on his shoulders. Every move, every word, and even his posture would be scrutinized. He began with a reading of Thor's iconic lines, slowly at first, then with rising intensity, capturing the balance of power, humor, and humanity that made the character legendary. Marvel executives were reportedly stunned. Chris brought something unique to Thor, a mix of raw strength, boyish charm, and authenticity. They saw not just an actor, but someone who could carry an entire franchise on his shoulders. Yet, just as hope was rising, there was one final hurdle, a screen test with other cast members that could make or break the casting decision. In that moment, Chris's journey hung in the balance. One wrong move, one misplaced line, and the dream could slip away. But Chris's dedication, resilience, and preparation shone through. He connected naturally with the other actors, exuding confidence and warmth, and by the end of the screen test, it was clear. Chris Hemsworth was destined to be Thor. What followed next would not only change Chris's life forever, but also reshape the superhero genre as we know it. Yet behind the glamour, there were secrets, struggles, and sacrifices that no one saw.
To wield a hammer of thunder, one must first forge the body of a god. Once Chris Hemsworth officially landed the role of Thor, the real challenge began. Being cast was only the first step. Embodying a Norse god demanded more than acting. It demanded transformation. Marvel Studios didn't just want a strong actor, they wanted someone who could physically look like a god walking among humans. Chris's training program was designed by top Hollywood trainers and was intense, grueling, and precise. It wasn't about just lifting heavy weights, it was about sculpting a body that was both functional and cinematic, capable of performing fight sequences, stunts, and long takes without injury. The routine combined weight training. Heavy compound lifts like deadlifts, squats, and bench presses built raw power. Isolation exercises sculpted specific muscle groups like the shoulders, biceps, and back to mimic the godly physique from the comics. Functional training. Thor needed agility as much as strength. Chris practiced kettlebell swings, rope climbs, battle ropes, and dynamic lunges to improve endurance and fluid movement for action scenes. Cardio and conditioning. Long bouts of high-intensity interval training ensured Chris could maintain energy for 12-hour-long shooting days while looking effortlessly strong. Diet and nutrition. Chris's diet was meticulously calculated. Every meal was timed to maximize muscle growth and recovery. Protein-rich foods, complex carbs, and healthy fats dominated his plate. Cheat meals were rare and guilt-free only when earned through brutal workouts. But physical transformation wasn't enough. Thor demanded presence, confidence, and an otherworldly aura. Chris worked with acting coaches to perfect posture, gestures, and facial expressions that conveyed both strength and vulnerability. He practiced wielding the iconic hammer, Mjolnir, for hours daily, ensuring every swing looked effortless and powerful on camera. One of the biggest challenges Chris faced was mental endurance. Pushing his body to extreme limits while learning fight choreography and memorizing lines was mentally exhausting. Yet he embraced the discomfort, knowing that every drop of sweat brought him closer to Thor. There were moments of doubt. Training injuries, long days, and the immense pressure sometimes made him question whether he could meet Marvel's vision. But Chris relied on discipline, motivation, and a clear vision of the god he needed to become. Friends and family watched in awe as he transformed from a fit actor into a towering, sculpted superhero ready to command the screen. But even with the body of a god, Chris knew that the real battle was beyond the gym, the pressure of Hollywood, fan expectations, and stepping into a role that could define his career forever.
Costume, hammer, and a presence that commands attention, Thor isn't just a role, it's a world you step into. After months of grueling training, Chris Hemsworth was no longer just an actor preparing for a role. He was ready to embody Thor in every sense. But stepping onto the Marvel set was a new challenge entirely. The camera doesn't just capture muscles, it captures confidence, subtle expressions, and the aura of a god. The first day on set was overwhelming. Towering set pieces, CGI-heavy scenes, and a cast of A-list actors made the world feel bigger than life. Chris's transformation in the gym gave him the physique, but now he needed to inhabit the character's spirit. Every line of dialogue had to convey strength, wit, and heroism, while still keeping Thor relatable and human. The costume transformation. The iconic Thor armor wasn't just for show. It was heavy, restrictive, and required Chris to adjust his movements for action scenes. Wearing the cape and wielding Mjolnir, Chris had to move naturally while still looking epic, a balance that took rehearsal and patience. Costume designers worked closely with him to ensure comfort didn't compromise the look. Fight choreography. On-set training didn't stop at the gym. Thor's battles demanded precision, timing, and cinematic flair. Chris trained extensively with stunt coordinators to master swordplay, hammer combat, and complex fight sequences with co-stars and CGI enemies. The challenge wasn't just executing the moves, it was performing them believably under the pressure of cameras, lighting, and multiple takes. Voice and presence. Thor's voice needed to match his godly presence. Chris worked tirelessly with voice coaches to modulate tone, emphasize gravitas, and deliver dialogue that resonated with audiences. Every "I am Thor" or "For Asgard" had to carry weight, not just words. His voice, posture, and gestures merged into a holistic portrayal of a Norse god. Overcoming on-set challenges. There were days when fatigue, the weight of the costume, and the intensity of stunts tested Chris's limits. Injuries were minor but inevitable. Bruised shoulders, sore knees, and strained muscles were part of the transformation. Yet the actor's dedication and resilience turned every challenge into a stepping stone toward Thor perfection. Behind-the-scenes footage reveals Chris laughing with co-stars, rehearsing sword swings, and practicing heroic poses repeatedly until every motion felt effortless. The camaraderie on set was vital. It helped him merge his personal energy with the larger-than-life character. But even with the armor on and the hammer in hand, Chris faced the ultimate test, the premiere and fan reception. Could audiences accept him as Thor, or would his transformation, despite all effort, be questioned? It's one thing to train in the gym. It's another to carry an entire cinematic universe on your shoulders. The release of the first Thor movie marked a pivotal moment in Chris Hemsworth's career. After months of physical transformation, on-set discipline, and embodying the godly persona, the spotlight was now on his performance and audience reception. Chris entered the set with a combination of excitement and nerves. Despite all the preparation, the ultimate challenge was bringing Thor's complex personality to life. A warrior with godly power, yet human vulnerability, capable of humor, rage, and deep emotion. Every take mattered, because the audience's connection to Thor depended on the authenticity of his portrayal. Embodying Thor's personality. Chris studied Norse mythology, comic book storylines, and Thor's established traits to ensure fidelity to the character. He worked closely with directors and writers to infuse humor, heroism, and emotional depth into every scene. Thor wasn't just a physical marvel. He was a character audiences could root for and relate to. The challenge of action sequences. The fight scenes were intense, combining practical stunts with cutting-edge CGI. Chris spent hours rehearsing with stunt doubles and choreographers to perfect every swing of Mjolnir, every leap, and every landing. The camera angles, timing, and physical exertion demanded precision. One mistake could compromise the realism of a scene. Handling fan expectations. As Thor's image appeared in trailers, fans started scrutinizing his portrayal online. There was immense pressure to deliver a performance worthy of Marvel's massive following. Criticism or praise would impact his credibility and the movie's success, making every moment on set a high-stakes test of his skills. Balancing strength and vulnerability. Thor's emotional journey, losing his hammer, facing betrayal, understanding humility, required Chris to tap into his inner emotional depth. Balancing physical power with emotional authenticity became the key to making Thor believable as both a mighty warrior and a relatable hero. Breakthrough moments. The first time the camera rolled on an epic battle sequence, Chris felt a surge of adrenaline and pride. He wasn't just acting, he was Thor. The combination of training, costume, choreography, and emotional preparation allowed him to deliver a performance that resonated with audiences worldwide. But the real test awaited: the movie's premiere. How would critics react? Could Chris Hemsworth cement himself as the definitive Thor, or would this high-stakes role become a fleeting opportunity?
You train, you sweat, you transform, but the true test comes when the world finally watches. After months of intense preparation and grueling shooting schedules, the first Thor movie was finally ready to premiere. For Chris Hemsworth, this wasn't just another film. It was the moment that could define his career. All the hours spent lifting, fighting, and perfecting his performance now faced the scrutiny of millions of fans and critics worldwide. The premiere and early buzz. The red carpet was ablaze with photographers and reporters eager to capture the latest Marvel phenomenon. Chris arrived in character-inspired elegance, his presence radiating the confidence of someone who had earned every inch of this moment. Fans screamed his name, showing early signs of what would become a massive fan following. Critics take notice. Initial reviews highlighted Chris's physical transformation, praising his dedication to portraying Thor authentically. But more importantly, critics emphasized his ability to balance humor, heroism, and vulnerability, making the God of Thunder relatable to everyday viewers. Quotes like, "Chris Hemsworth embodies Thor not just in muscle, but in heart and humor," started appearing across major publications. It became clear that he had risen above the label of just another action star. Fan reactions and social media buzz. Social media erupted with memes, fan art, and endless discussions about Thor's character depth and Hemsworth's performance. Fans debated which scene was the most iconic, shared behind-the-scenes clips, and praised his commitment to bringing Thor to life. His transformation, once doubted by skeptics, now became legendary among comic book enthusiasts and mainstream audiences alike. Box office success. The movie didn't just receive critical acclaim, it also performed exceptionally at the box office. Thor's character resonated with audiences globally, contributing to Marvel's expanding cinematic universe. Chris's portrayal became a benchmark for superhero transformation, inspiring countless fans to adopt fitness regimes and embrace their personal strength. Impact on Chris Hemsworth's career. Thor's success solidified Chris as a household name. His transformation from an aspiring actor to a global superstar was complete. But this role also brought new responsibilities and pressures. Maintaining the Thor physique for sequels, engaging with fan expectations, and navigating Hollywood's demanding spotlight. Despite the accolades, the journey was far from over. With Thor now a defining role, could Chris sustain this level of success, or would the immense pressure and physical demands eventually take their toll?
Becoming a god isn't just about muscles. It's about sacrifice, discipline, and pushing past every limit you thought you had. Chris Hemsworth's journey to Thor glory was far from glamorous behind the cameras. While fans saw godlike physique and effortless charm, the real struggle took place in gyms, kitchens, and even in his mind. Physical demands. To maintain Thor's physique, Chris followed a relentless workout schedule that combined heavy weightlifting, functional training, and combat-based exercises. Some days started at 5 a.m. with an intense circuit, followed by stunt rehearsals and fight choreography. His body endured over 12 hours of training daily, often leaving him sore, exhausted, and mentally drained. Weightlifting and muscle building, bench presses, deadlifts, and squats were done with extreme precision. Every rep had to sculpt a body worthy of Thor's mythic image. Combat training. To make fight scenes believable, Chris trained in various martial arts, including boxing and sword fighting. Each move had to look powerful yet effortless, combining strength, speed, and timing. Endurance and cardio. Despite the bulk, he needed to move fluidly on screen. Sprints, HIIT workouts, and stamina drills were essential to avoid fatigue during action sequences. Dietary sacrifices. Chris's diet was just as demanding as his workouts. With a focus on high-protein, nutrient-dense meals, he consumed multiple small meals every day to fuel muscle growth and recovery. Cheat days were rare, and indulgences were carefully timed around his training schedule. "It's not just about eating chicken and broccoli," Chris once said. "It's about timing, discipline, and understanding how your body responds." The mental discipline to resist cravings and maintain caloric intake was as taxing as the workouts themselves. Mental and emotional pressure. The expectations from Marvel, fans, and the press created immense mental pressure. Chris admitted that self-doubt crept in, especially during early shoots, when he compared himself to comic book Thor or even his co-stars. The fear of not living up to the role weighed heavily, turning preparation into a test of endurance beyond the physical. Injuries and recovery. Despite careful planning, injuries were inevitable. Muscle strains, joint pain, and exhaustion were part of the package. recovery became a science in itself. Massages, physiotherapy, and sleep schedules were non-negotiable parts of his routine. Sacrifices in personal life. Chris often missed family events, social gatherings, and personal downtime. His life revolved around the transformation, making the journey isolating at times, despite the eventual fame and success. But what happens when dedication borders on obsession? The next chapter will reveal the hidden costs of Thor's transformation and how Chris balanced fame, fatigue, and the intense expectations of Hollywood.
Chris Hemsworth didn't just play Thor, he became Thor in the hearts of millions worldwide. After years of relentless training, mental preparation, and personal sacrifices, Chris Hemsworth's journey culminated in not just a movie role, but a cultural phenomenon. Thor became one of Marvel's most beloved characters, and Chris's portrayal left a lasting impact on fans, pop culture, and the superhero genre itself. Global recognition. When Thor premiered, audiences were captivated by the actor's muscular physique, commanding presence, and emotional depth. Chris's portrayal balanced the godlike strength with human vulnerability, giving Thor a multi-dimensional personality that fans could connect with. Social media exploded with admiration for his transformation and dedication. Fitness enthusiasts studied his routines, aspiring to emulate his workouts and diet. Cosplay, memes, and fan art further cemented Chris Hemsworth as the definitive Thor. Influence on fitness culture. Chris's transformation inspired a global fitness movement. People were not just trying to get strong, they wanted Thor-level strength and aesthetics. Personal trainers and fitness apps often referenced his routines, while his own fitness programs reached millions, emphasizing discipline, consistency, and sustainable training. Expanding career beyond Thor. Playing Thor opened doors for diverse roles in Hollywood. Chris used the fame to explore action, drama, and comedy, proving he wasn't just a muscle-bound superhero. Films like Extraction showcased his physical prowess, while interviews revealed his dedication to family and personal growth. Fan relationships and impact. Chris's authenticity and humor off-screen strengthened his bond with fans. Conventions, social media interactions, and public appearances revealed a relatable, grounded side of the actor, enhancing Thor's legacy. Fans didn't just admire the character, they admired the man behind the hammer. Enduring transformation. Even years after the first Thor movie, Chris continues to maintain peak physical condition, showing that Thor isn't just a movie role, it's a lifestyle commitment. His story demonstrates the fusion of talent, discipline, and perseverance, inspiring aspiring actors and fitness enthusiasts alike. Chris Hemsworth's journey proves that transformation isn't just about muscles, it's about heart, resilience, and vision. But behind the glory, there were untold personal battles, moments of doubt, and sacrifices that few ever saw. The story of Thor is more than a superhero tale. It's a human story of dedication, endurance, and triumph.